Are you ready to learn a more complex transition? I call it 1 to 4 transition. Before we get into it, I'd highly recommend following the lesson on another device at the same time, or else you may forget how to make the transition by the end of the lesson. You'll need 4 pictures for this transition. Place the main picture in the first layer in multi-layer and add this mask to it. Then copy layer 1 into layers 2, 3 and 4. This way the mask will also be copied. However, we'll place the mask in a different position for each one. It will be in the upper left side for layer 1, the upper right for layer 2, the lower left for layer 3 and the lower right for layer 4. Let's do that now. Move the picture with your fingers and use the arrows to place it right in the corner. You'll need to be accurate to avoid gaps between the layers. Once each mask location is set, feel free to save the mask for future use by tapping the menu and export. Layer 2 will just decrease in size, while layers 1, 3 and 4 will rotate apart from that. So that would be, all you do is lie, but the layers that rotate will transition into a different picture. Here's how to do that. Do you remember what I told you about the anchor point in the previous lesson? Be careful with it. Place it in the middle of the picture and place the ladder in its position again. Do this for all the layers. Let's dig deeper into the transition. In layer 2, decrease the size to 90 after you hear All You Do Is in the song.
All you do is
Add a graph to your liking. I'll use one that starts fast and ends slow.
all you do is
To see the rest of the layers, tap here. Great! Now rotate the rest of the layers for each lie you hear in the song.
all you do is
To do this, add a keyframe for rotation in the y-axis at the start of the transition and rotate it to 25 at the end of it. You may be wondering what I'm referring to by y-axis. I'm pretty sure many of you have heard about the x and y-axes in math. Well, guess what? It's used in editing as well. The x-axis is a horizontal imaginary line, while the y-axis is a vertical imaginary line. So, when a picture or video rotates in the y-axis, this is what I'm referring to. And when it rotates in the x-axis, this is it. Having said this, we can continue with our transition. I'll add keyframes for rotation as well as for size. Last but not least, use a graph that starts slow and ends fast for both size and rotation.
all you do is lie, arguments and wait.
Repeat these steps with layers 3 and 4. Here is our current progress.
All you do is lie, arguments and wait.
Now, place the other 3 pictures in layers 5, 6 and 7. To transition from layer 1 to layer 5, first make the 5th layer size 50 and place it in the corner. Then change the size to 45. This way, layer 5 has the same size and is at the same position as layer 1. Go to layer 1 and see when the transition ends. It will disappear in this keyframe, so set a keyframe for opacity 1 frame before and turn it to 0 when the transition finishes. Then, go back to layer 5 and set the rotation to 25, but this time to the left side. Set rotation to 0 1 second after this keyframe and use this pre-made graph. Make opacity 0 before the transition starts. Repeat this process to create the other 2 rotation transitions. This is what we have so far.
All you do is lie, arguments and wait.
Now create a master with all the layers and change size to 83 at the same time as layer 2 changes size. And use the same graph.
All you do is lie, arguments and wait.
Add tracking blur to all individual layers, then set the background color to green and tap Create. Add a background picture by placing your main picture in layer 1. We'll make it darker by decreasing the opacity and changing the background color to black. I like using the moving glass noise and Pro Blur effects for this background. Making it bigger looks better. Then add a color layer in layer 2. I'll choose purple and blend it with layer 1 with this blend background effect. Place your transition in layer 3. Get rid of the green by masking it. If the pictures you selected have green in them, it will also mask that part and it will look a little bit weird, so be careful with this. Add drop shadow so it stands out from the background. Use this slider to control the distance of the shadow, this one for the rotation, and this one for blurriness. You can change the shadow's color and opacity here. Here is a tip. Placing the color layer on layer 4 with the same blend background effect will give the background and foreground colors more of an even look. Lower the opacity if you think it's too much. Last but not least, add particles in the 5th layer. I'll make little shining stars, but feel free to play around with the settings here until you find the perfect look.
All you do is lie, arguments and wait.
Do you remember about panning? If not, check out the previous lesson. I'll add it to the clip here, but instead of rotating the clip, I'll add some keyframes for path.
All you do is lie, arguments and wait.
Make sure you have a smooth paths instead of a straight paths.
All you do is lie, arguments and wait.
We're almost done. I'll just add Video Star motion blur and custom coloring in Transform to make it look even cooler. Look at you, you're an expert now. I'd love to see what you've learned, so either replicate this transition or give it a more personal touch. If you post your video on Instagram and TikTok, don't forget to use our hashtag so we can find it. And don't forget that you have all the material I used in this transition in the contents section of the lesson. The next transition is a window mask transition and we'll learn how masking works in that one. So see you there!